The importance of multi-value contributions is the topic of my conversation today with Mike Domin. He is VP Analyst with Gartner. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Bob. How are you?
I am well, but I want to know what this means. Would you define for me what is a multi-value contribution and how can it be of value in times of uncertainty?
Yeah, so it's simply supply chain delivery on more than just cost. So cost and sustainability, cost and productivity. So multiple forms of value, not only delivering on cost or not only delivering on productivity.
Mm-hmm. So you got to have it all, is what you're saying.
Yeah. You got to do it all. We have to deliver multiple things against multiple competing objectives and requirements that come down from the board, the C-suite, customers, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. But you don't wave a magic wand over the organization and say, we are now going to engage in multi-value contributions, end of discussion.
Correct.
How do you approach this whole issue of quote unquote wanting to have it all?
Yeah, so putting together a business case that identifies the contributions that you get from things like digital that apply to not only cost and efficiency, but also things like sustainability.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you mentioned sustainability, which is responsibility across an organization. Number of people, number of departments have to get in on that. So again, give me an example of how this might happen in the real world, following the multi-value contribution idea and applying it to something like sustainability.
Yeah. So a good example is a large consumer products company. They're in the beverage part of the consumer products industry. And their multi-value play was essentially implementing IoT, so advanced technology and sensors in their manufacturing line, along with advanced analytics to reduce the amount of breakdowns in their manufacturing lines. So what did they do? There were sustainability benefits, reduction in waste, reduction in energy, but also an increase in productivity and increased quality. So that's an example of multi-value play, with the sustainability being yet one element, but also cost, productivity, and waste reduction.
Mm-hmm. Again, you do have these organizational silos, each with their own kind of agenda. Okay. You need somebody kind of looking over the whole thing and making sure that everybody's on the same track, and indeed the multi-value contributions is on everyone's mind. Who is that person?
Who is that person? The CSCO needs to be focused on that.
Chief Supply Chain Officer.
The leader of the organization.
This is someone who's emerged quite a bit in the executive suite in the last few years.
Correct. Right. And they're connected across the, interacting with the other C-suite members and have the responsibility around the overall design and operation of the supply chain.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so they're out to navigate uncertainties. That is a big deal, and I imagine this can be a great help to a certain extent. But what factors constrains an organization's inability to do this?
Yeah. So there are 5 major ones that I think of. So the first one is around, what is my physical network setup like? Where can I manufacture or distribute products from? The second one is, within that network, what can we do? Can we make every kind of product in every manufacturing site or not? The third piece I think about are the skills and talents of the individuals in the organization. So again, we'll take the manufacturing thread a step further. Are the individuals in the organization able to move from one manufacturing line to another to make one kind of product or another? So those are like the top 3 things that I would highlight. Also, the risk profile of the company. So when the CSCO engages with the rest of the C-suite and even the board, how risk tolerant or risk averse are we? Because the ability to actually be anti-fragile, be able to capitalize on those uncertainties, means you've got to be willing to do things like take on some risk. Risk can be things like more inventory, adding additional suppliers.
It sounds like you're asking, though, an organization with an existing supply chain to take a look in the mirror and honestly assess what it's been doing all these years, and then how they might change. That is a huge deal for an ongoing organization, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, we're in new times, right? So inflation is up. We have disruptions around the world and continuing, so not abating anywhere. So we need to step back and take a look. Now that we've settled out mainly from the pandemic and have some stability on supply, we're still in an uncomfortable, uncertain kind of environment. So how do we equip ourselves in order to support that more effectively?
Let's talk about one of the answers to how we can equip ourselves, and that is the generation of AI, artificial intelligence. So much talk about it now. Artificial intelligence and then generative artificial intelligence at the same time. A lot of people using those phrases kind of interchangeably. How do you distinguish them?
Yeah, so AI, artificial intelligence, is the big bucket, and it's been around since the 50s, right? In supply chain, we've been working with AI for a number of years. It's usually referred to as machine learning used within the supply chain planning process. The difference with generative AI is it's really focused around generating new content. So it might be new code that you might use in your supply chain applications, but usually it's around creating new text, emails. We know all the examples we see kind of in the press and the media, whereas the more traditional forms of AI are really about how do we take all the data from our systems and generate a better result or better outcome. Again, most commonly we see that in supply chain planning in order to come up with a better demand forecast, a better supply plan.
That sounds like the really strong value proposition for AI is to be able to do that larger thing, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
Because you talk about Gen AI, the new content. You called it new content, but I'm sure we all know that it's kind of repurposed content based on what it's already been told.
Correct.
So is Gen AI ready for prime time in terms of does it know enough in order to come up with these conclusions that can be of value to an organization?
So there are pockets of opportunity. So we heard some of these in the keynote, the Gartner keynote today. So for example, in the sourcing procurement area, being able to analyze across multiple contracts, master service agreements, the supplies and supply chain, in the logistics space as well, and being able to come up with a standard best way of contracting and managing the contracts. So saving a lot of time and effort around that. That's clearly a use case we see in supply chain. I'm also hearing from actually quite a few of the software vendors around using generative AI on top of their applications. So AI embedded in some of their planning applications, but generative AI to help with learning and training and change management with their users. So one software vendor described it as like a super search engine on top of all their documents around training and education, to make it easier for users to be able to how do I do that again? And be able to just type in the prompts and get the answers to that. I think there's a great opportunity with that if that helps with change management and adoption of the technology.
We could circle back to what we started to talk about at the beginning of this conversation, multi-value contribution. I wondered to what extent AI and maybe Gen AI can help to reveal what those values are and help a company to understand how it might achieve this. As AI can play a role, right?
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the key though is making sure that people are part of the equation as well. We can't turn everything over.
Oh, come on, why not?
to the AI machine, right?
Not yet, at least.
Yeah, we refer to, and actually many folks refer to this as human in the loop.
Yeah.
Right. So whether we're talking about a human reviewing what's coming out of those contracts and the master service agreement and making sure that's structured correctly, still has to review it. Or in the case of supply chain planning, every supply chain has planning. How do we look at that from a critical perspective? How do we make sure we're not only asking the right questions, but interpreting the data coming out and then using it properly in our processes?
Great insights into how supply chains these days can be firing on all cylinders and assessing equal weight to the benefits that can be derived from the steps that you're proposing here, Mike, with the help of AI as well. Thanks so much for your insights. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Bob.
I've been speaking with Mike Domin of Gartner. Thanks for watching.